We're not used to public speaking, so we've written down the things that we'd like to share with you, and it's International Women's Day, so it's a really nice opportunity for me to acknowledge some of our great Vaishnavis and also share a little bit of history about women in the ISKCON movement. So
Hare Krishna. That's all right. I've been told to talk into the microphone last time I spoke like that. My husband, I've been, personally practicing bhakti for the last 46 years. It's been a very enjoyable 46 years. And I'm deeply indebted to Srila Prabhupada for showering his mercy upon me to be able to perform devotional service. Without that mercy, I would just be wandering around in the material world, completely lost. And also I'm really grateful to all you wonderful devotees who are carrying on Srila Prabhupada's mission, taking it forward for future generations. It's really, it's really inspiring to see how Krishna consciousness is actually growing, and so many empowered Vaishnavis in this group. I've heard, of so many different devotees who are actually heading up a lot of the major initiatives here in this Western Sydney preaching, so that gives me great joy. Today being International Women's Day, I wanted to celebrate and appreciate sisterhood, which I think is really important. Even in material life, having close friendships is important for our emotional and psychological well-being. But as devotees, as Vaishnavis, having those close relationships, doing service together, it's a spiritual relationship, and particularly the ones that you form early in your devotional life, they sustain you throughout your whole lifetime. So I've got my dear friend Sarvamangala here sitting next to me. We go back, Bhagavata Shraya, her husband, he was a temple president in Sydney in '79 when I first came to Australia. So we go back a long way, and then Sarvamangala came on the scene in the 80s, and I stayed with her in London one time, and we've been on different journeys together. And then my dear friend Janavamata sitting over here, we were brahmacharis together. Janavamata is from Dunedin, New Zealand, and I'll tell you a little bit more about her later. She's kind of like an added bonus to today's meeting. But we were brahmacharis together, and we would go out and selling in the early 80s. We went off, the focus shifted from book distribution because of the bad PR we were getting, and it moved into paraphernalia distribution. So we were big Lakshmi collectors, helping build Mayapur and build all the different temples and gurukuls and things in Australia and New Zealand.
Better be careful, he might want to finish the temple.
For me personally, gender's never really been much of an issue in performing bhakti. I feel really fortunate to be able to say that, because many of my sisters, through the 70s, the 80s and 90s, there was a glass ceiling for many devotees. But Pratapana and I, we always worked together as a team, and I was always able to use my God-given gifts in Krishna's service. So I'm really grateful for that. In more recent years, I've found that I've actually really been wanting to hear more women's voices, and read about great Vaishnavis, take more nurture of my close Vaishnavi friends. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's full of wonderful stories of great Vaishnavi heroines who have usually had to overcome severe challenges and obstacles in their bhakti. But they've used those situations to intensify their dependence and love for Krishna. Queen Kunti, Draupadi, Queen Archie, Sati, Devahudi, the wives of the Brahmanas. So many wonderful heroines we have in the pages of Bhagavatam. I also have my own heroines. There's the heroines, historical heroines, but there's also contemporary heroines. Her Grace, Devashakti Mataji, I don't know if any of you know her. She's been serving in Vrindavan for the last 50 years. She was my Bhaktin leader back in the late 70s. And she is a Shiksha Guru to many devotees. She is has a very deep sadhaka. She's a powerhouse of realized knowledge. Her achievements are so many, I could actually write a whole book about Devashakti's achievements. So she is one of my heroines, and she always gives the most sage advice. Another one of my heroines is a devotee not so well known in Australia, and her name is Janava Prabhu, and she is a disciple of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He requested her to translate the Srimad Bhagavatam into Chinese, into Mandarin specifically. And it took 10 years for her to actually execute that task. She applies Krishna consciousness in the most thoughtful and intelligent way. She does a lot of research. She was able to get the Chinese government to actually print and distribute Srila Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam. She presented it to the Chinese government as one of India's 3 major epics, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and the Srimad Bhagavatam. And her and her husband have gone on to open centres in China and Taiwan. She's a great source of inspiration for me. She's lastly, Janava Mata, sitting here quietly. She's been known as to be described as a personification of enthusiasm. Vishaka Devi Dasi, Srila Prabhupada's disciple Vishaka, Janava Mata took her on a tour of the South Island when she came out for the 50th anniversary of the incorporation of ISKCON, and Janava took her for a tour of the South Island, and that was a term she coined for Janava Mata. So, but she's also just on her own. She moved to Dunedin. How many years ago was that, Janava Mata? 27 years ago. She thought she'd just kind of take it easy a little bit, but there's nothing can repress Janava Mata. She started. It's basically a huge university city, Dunedin, and so she started actually cooking prasadam and distributing prasadam at Otago University. And over more than 20 years, she distributed more than 500,000. Not only distributed, she cooked it, she served it, she shared the holy name, made many devotees 500,000 plates of prasadam. Also establishing a community in the temple there, where there formerly was no Krishna conscious presence. But today, being the International Women's Day, there is one devotee in particular who I'd really like to honour, who I never really knew about until this past year. And she is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada's from America. Her name's Sarvamangala Devi Dasi. And it was her who actually established the ISKCON Women's Ministry. First the North American ISKCON Women's Ministry, and then the International Women's Ministry. She gives a lot of credit to a friend of hers, Pranada Devi Dasi, who was probably in the 80s. She saw a lot of injustice in the way women were treated in ISKCON, and everyone was too shy or scared to say anything, but Pranada started to speak out. She actually had a very powerful dream. Prabhupada came and over a number of nights, and he wanted this addressed in ISKCON, because to have a healthy society, a society which is going to grow, it has to be inclusive. It can't be, everyone has to be respected and given full facility to serve and preach. She actually Parada actually petitioned Siddharma to please help me bring about change. And Siddharma, I'll tell you a little bit about Siddharma, because I actually, just as some of her achievements before I get into the change part. She exemplified Vedic motherhood. Not only was she a loving mother to her own two daughters, but she was a loving mother to all the devotees she guided, mentored, and helped to guide in Krishna consciousness. In her 50 years of devotional service, she served as a Sankirtan devotee, Sankirtan leader, temple board manager, temple president in the Philippines. She developed and managed the book distribution in New Vrindavan, where she personally distributed hundreds of books each week. So she had a long, deep history of service. She was an eloquent speaker. She was fearless, determined, and loyal to the women of ISKCON, most especially to those whose voices had been silenced and whose potential had been marginalised. She headed up the ISKCON Public Relations Department, which was instrumental in addressing the massive Robin George lawsuit, which almost crippled ISKCON North America. And due to closely working with her godbrothers in that service, she was actually able to influence them to see the marginalisation of women in ISKCON at that time. And those godbrothers of hers probably didn't really realise, they hadn't seen it from a woman's perspective, and they actually helped her take that discussion to the Mayapur GBC meetings. In 1994, she became the minister of the newly formed North American Women's Ministry. Shortly after that, she became the executive officer, the highest post on the ISKCON North American Managerial Board. In 1996, she established the International Women's Ministry and was welcomed onto the International GBC body. So these were quite groundbreaking things back in those times, when women really didn't have much of a voice, or they weren't represented. They were kind of at the back of the temple room, in the doing so much valuable service, going out on book distribution every day, and kind of the backbone of the society, but they didn't really have any voice or much respect, and from not all men, but from many of the men in the movement. So that first year she was on the International GBC body, the GBC made a declaration that battery, verbal and emotional abuse are destructive to the devotional creeper and thus considered serious Vaishnava aparat. Any attempt to justify this type of abusive mentality on the basis of Shastra is misconstrued and is firmly rejected by all practicing Vaishnavas. Then in 2000, the GBC resolved under the Women's Participation Law that we hereby pledge ourselves and encourage our regional and senior leaders to confront and correct any preaching or teaching that undermines the health and strength of the Grihastha ashram or discriminates against spiritually based Grihastha life. Not only was, this is the, so many young sannyasis were coming forward in the 70s and the early 80s, and so, to be a Grihastha, that was kind of looked down upon. To be a woman was even more looked down upon. It wasn't a healthy culture. Although so much amazing preaching was happening, you know. So in 2014, the GBC discussed whether women should be called Prabhu, Mataji, or Devi. After due deliberation, they requested the Sastrik Advisory Committee to do more research because there was a lot of evidence supporting each of those titles. Srila Prabhupada, however, addressed his early daughters with Prabhu after their initiated name, although linguistically it's a masculine term.
Sorry, it wasn't gender specific, the way Prabhupada used it.
At a later date, he quoted Chanakya Pandit, that a learned man sees all women as mothers and thus addresses them as Mataji. Some devotee men failed to understand that the purpose of this was to help them control their lust, as seeing all women as mothers, not as a way to actually pigeonhole women just as Matajis only. A preacher who is actually able to see others as spirit souls addresses women in only one way, as they wish to be addressed. And thank you for addressing Sarvamangala as Sarvamangala Mata, because, you know, Srila Prabhupada gave her that name. Our spiritual masters have given us our name. And we are a personalist movement, not an impersonalist movement. We like to actually chart the names, you know, Sarvamangala Dasi Mata, of course, but we like to change our names as spiritual sound vibration, so it's nice to use them. So I just wanted to, you know, say how important it is to understand our history. It's a very short history, but also we can learn from our past mistakes and you know, still some of the prejudices linger on in some camps today, but to be aware of the history that's gone before us and learn from it. So I honour Jayasri Devi Dasi today for speaking out. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned, because I kind of didn't read my notes, I kind of just ad-libbed, which is very brave of me, because I'm not used to doing that. But the reason Siddharma Mataji came to my attention when I was asked, you know, to speak here today, was because in June last year, she left her body, she passed away. And so there was an outpouring of wonderful homages and things in America where she was very well known, and that's how one of my American friends contacted me straight away and said, you know, did you know? And I was like, I've never heard her name before, I don't know who she is. And so now I've actually unpacked her story and realised what a big difference she has made to the culture of ISKCON. And if ISKCON's got a healthy culture, then we're able to grow. When the culture is off balance, things aren't situated, we're not going to get Lord Chaitanya's full mercy. So, I honour her because, you know, for speaking out against the abuse and marginalisation of women in ISKCON. She fought for us to return to an inclusive society, which it was in the early days, where all devotees can rise to their full potential in their service to Krishna, and glass ceilings will no longer exist based on bodily identification. So she is an unsung hero, a planet Earth heroine. Her grace, Siddharma Prabhu Ki Jai. I just wanted to encourage all the Vaishnavis today on International Women's Day to embrace sisterhood and to choose your friends wisely, because they will enrich your life by giving you encouragement, comfort, understanding and strength. And I testify, as two of my close friends are here today, which have been part of my life for many, many decades. I also ask you all to find your own heroines whether they be contemporary or historical or both, because they will inspire you to dig deep, become strong and brave in adversities, and will exemplify how to always take refuge at the lotus feet of Guru and Krishna. And my final request, I've gone over time here,
It doesn't matter.
to you today is to be compassionate and non-judgmental of others. The Sri Dharma of women is to be devoted wives and mothers. And this is a very important service as it builds the fabric of a healthy society. We're in Kali Yuga, however, and everything is upside down and topsy-turvy. Not everyone is fortunate enough to find a good devotee husband. Not everyone is fortunate enough to be blessed with children. There are many sincere, single, unmarried women in ISKCON. There are women whose husbands have abandoned them. There are devotee women who have had to escape from abusive marriages. There are widows. So don't judge them, feel threatened by them, or hold yourself to superior to any of them, because they are also your sisters. And Srila Prabhupada was so inclusive and gave everyone shelter. He was caring and loving to everyone. There are so many quotes from scripture, both positive and negative, about the nature of woman. But if we need to understand the proper attitude and behaviour we should adopt in this regard, we should look to the example of our beloved founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. Few of us here were directly present to witness his example, but you can witness it through the experiences of disciples, the experiences his disciples share with us in their many biographies. One of my favourite books is called A Bond of Love, which I left in the car. And over 300 of Srila Prabhupada's daughters share how he personally touched and transformed their lives with his purity, his message, and the love and kindness he showed. There are many heroines amongst these pages. I bought the book with me today, so I could. How many have read that book, A Bond of Love, Srila Prabhupada's Daughters? Just raise your hand if you've read it. Now it's available from Amazon.com.au, and it's a wonderful book to read together, particularly amongst the Vaishnavis, but I actually think amongst the men as well, because to actually read the examples of these amazing women. Janavamara in Dunedin, she reads that book regularly. I think you've read it through twice, haven't you, as a group with different devotees. I've read it a number of times at Yugo Call. It always kind of brings me to tears when I see these, the devotees in the book. They were asked to just write a short thing on how Prabhupada actually changed their lives and what he gave them. After reading it, I always came away with a deeper appreciation for Srila Prabhupada, for his mercy, and for his disciples. So I'll bring it out later today. You can all have a look at it. So thank you all very much for listening to me, and I'll pass the microphone on to Sarvamangala.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Well, I don't think I'm going to be able to remember as much as Jayasri did. I've got a good excuse. I'm in my 70s now, so your memory goes. I like that. Well, the basis of what we have got very overlapping values.
Well,
wonder why. But basically, I'm thinking about going around the thought of loving exchange. that Prabhupada personified. Prabhupada incorporated ISKCON just after moving into that bare, musty storefront. And Mukunda Maharaj was shocked that Prabhupada's trying to make a legal entity out of ISKCON when they had nothing. There were just a few alternative people coming. But Prabhupada was, his vision was so broad. And you know that story of when he was sitting on a form next to a man, and that man asked him what he was doing. And he says, "Oh, I have many temples. Not, they're not come yet, but it will be coming." And so many people. As Prabhupada was completely dedicated to following what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wanted, bringing Krishna consciousness to the West. So Prabhupada describes the purposes of a society. It's very nice. It's as a means of bringing the members together with each other and nearer to Krishna. This is completely nice reason. And then he expanded the paradigm of a society, not just to a few members, but to include humanity at large as recipients of Lord Chaitanya's merciful Sankirtan movement. And Prabhupada instructed that the movement be based on love and trust. So it may sound like a little bit idealistic, but we know that it works, doesn't it? So I gave this example. A baby instinctively turns to the mother for milk, for nutrition and bonding. To see the trust in a baby's eyes and the exchange of love with a mother is very beautiful. So everything begins with anamoya, doesn't it? Lack of nurture in any family is very disturbing for all its members. So we're trying to keep our ISKCON family tight and healthy. So nurturing is an intrinsic quality of women, which can be extended beyond the immediate family. But I don't want to minimize what women do at home. We need good families. Your Sangha is full of good families, isn't it? They come and give their time. But still, they're cooking, they're bringing up the next generation. They're doing such great service. And I just thought, before I went any further, I'd like to give a hand to what women do at home, housewives and mums. And where we'd all be. And the future, obviously, the children are the future. At one time, Prabhupada was having a discussion with a disciple, I can't remember who it was, and Prabhupada said, "You can do one thing I can't do." And that devotee said, "Oh, how can that be, Srila Prabhupada?" And he said, "You can go into the future." So we have to really, really cherish the young people, give them all facility, encourage them. Don't put people, if somebody's struggling or, in your teens, it's not easy sometimes. You don't know who you are yet, you're wondering what you're going to do, you're very sensitive, and all kinds of things we have to support. And remember that we've been there too. Crazy mixed up kid. Hold on, get my glasses on. So that the concept of family figures large. We were all invited by Srila Prabhupada to join the family of Lord Chaitanya's dancing party. Chanting, dancing and feasting is the culture for spreading love of God. I remember when I first joined, we used to go out all day on Harinam, went out in the morning, came back for lunch, and went out again in the afternoon. And it was ecstatic. You know, I remember not being at all self-conscious because we were so blissful, like the sound of the mridanga and echoing in the main street, Oxford Street in London, and then again when I'm thinking of this, just handing out BTGs one after another, and people take things when you're blissful, don't they? They don't mean bliss all the time. And it was really easy to distribute because we were so happy that it became infectious. So that I was thinking that the foundation of our movement is built on sharing bliss and prasadam. And this is the basic anamoya of ISKCON. Prasadam, tasting bliss, having Krishna's name on our lips, and sharing it by singing and dancing and distributing the holy name. It's very simple, isn't it? Prabhupada once said it's so simple you can miss it. So another family is the temple family. You're building a temple and you're all working together as one family, and it's really starting to happen, isn't it? And you're so excited and you're doing it together. Prabhupada really liked married couples to manage temples, actually. It was like that in the early years. So many temples. And it worked. I think it was a balanced managerial diet. So you've got a mum and a dad, basically, like a ma and pa operation. And there were brahmacharis, brahmacharinis. Prabhupada invented that word, brahmacharinis. So it was the counterpart of brahmacharis, and we did what they did. We did all the same things, and Prabhupada was really happy about that. I often say, I want to say, both Jayasri and I have had that service experience of managing a temple with our husbands and serving the devotees. And it's just so natural. It's so natural that there's someone you can go to. My husband, when we were at Soho Street, managed Soho Street, during really difficult years actually, he didn't have an office, he just had a kind of lounge, and practically everyone in the temple would come see him at some time in the day. And you have to know how your people are doing, don't you? And you have to be able to be there for them. I often say I had a family of 60 children because that's how many devotees we were fortunate enough to serve when we were at Soho Street. We didn't have any other ones, just 60. So caring for devotees is a very personal service, and it's Krishna's very pleased when you serve the devotees, isn't he? So I get on to a little thing about women in general. Once a feng shui expert was invited to Mayapur for an assessment of the dynamics of the project. And one outstanding response that he made was that the energy was too yang. I don't know if you know about Chinese yin and yang, but yang is like a bit heavier and male-orientated, and yin is kind of softer. Of course, there are heavy women as well. He said there wasn't sufficient female energy, and it was not soft and welcoming enough. He was an expert. Srila Prabhupada certainly appreciated the women's considerable austerities in India. There were, hardly any facilities in the early days for the men or the women. It was very austere. So wherever he traveled, he lovingly treated us as his daughters. There's boundless evidence of this in many photos and stories of women, and also in Prabhupada's books. The way Prabhupada treated us was amazing. I remember one time, I always used to like to get in Prabhupada's rooms if I could. And one time we went to see Prabhupada off at the airport, and he was giving out sweets. And he knew I was always eager to be there. And when I put my hand out for a sweet, he just went hard with the sweet on my hand, like as a joke. He was not formal. He was paka, and obviously totally a gentleman. But he was not stiff, or he would laugh, he would joke. One time, Pralika was his cook in, well, there were a lot of women cooks in Bombay. I was there. I still call it Bombay because I was there so long, I got used to it. But one time Prabhupada had edema in his ankles, and they thought they won't give Prabhupada any salt. And Palika served his lunch prashadam, and he was really angry that it wasn't salty. And he threw the plate across the table at her. And you know, he was like a father. He is like a father, strict, of course. So there's so much evidence of that. I mean, anybody who reads Prabhupada's books, anybody who knows devotees, who serve Prabhupada, they know that he said the girls could do exactly what the men could do. Of course, the men couldn't have babies or anything, but, and I have Vishaka as my heroine in that regard, taking all those photographs. You know, it was really hard sometimes. I think when Prabhupada went walks on the beach, it was mostly men, because the women were cleaning his room, or dressing the deities, or cooking, and then so it was hard for Vishaka to be sometimes the only woman there on the walk with Prabhupada, and having to push in to get pictures, and you know, she's a very sober person. And also she told me one time she was in Vrindavan. It was actually at the installation of the deities, and there was an older Prabhupada disciple, male, standing right in front of her, and she was trying to get a shot of Prabhupada fanning the deities and installing the deities. And she said, "Please, can you move so I can get the shot?" And he just ignored her. And then she said, "If you don't move, you'll see it. If you move and let me take the shot, thousands of devotees will see it." So she's very brave, but she's so sober. All right. Sorry, I can't remember everything without looking. So, where am I? I had some nice... Yeah, I have a point here, the same as you. When you share service and friendship with a God sister, it's the same also with a God brother. I remember when I joined, I felt that the brahmacharis and the married men, they were like my brothers. We didn't think of them in any other way. We hadn't really been educated even to stand on different sides of the temple at one time. And they were very kind to me. In those days, we were all initiated by Srila Prabhupada. We all had the same guru. But I'd like to make the point that we're still all the daughters, or granddaughters, or great-granddaughters of Srila Prabhupada. And so we all have Prabhupada's association if we want it. And you can... one of my god sisters told me that Prabhupada said we should pray to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and I had never done that. It was Vishva Devi. She's another heroine. Vishva Devi was sewing the most beautiful outfits. No, she was designing them. We had tailors in Bombay. She, for over 40 years, she's been designing for Radha Rasa Bihari. And now her daughter went to design school and she's making outfits for Radha Rasa Bihari. But Vishwa told me that she used to pray to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So, and that Prabhupada said we should. So I started to do that, and I feel like it gives me a lot of shelter. So I hope that, I assume that some of you do pray to Prabhupada. If you don't, you could try it. Because he always reciprocates. There's no way that Prabhupada doesn't reciprocate. And that's why I call this, these thoughts I had, that Prabhupada is, there's always reciprocation. Always. I have a personal story about that, but I just want to encourage you not to think you're unintelligent because you're a woman, because Prabhupada says that in his books, but then he said it in his lectures, that is materialistic women, not our girls in ISKCON. And he did not like them to be mistreated. He didn't like anybody to be treated in a crass way. So Prabhupada said materialistic women are unintelligent, but that devotee women are very intelligent. And Prabhupada gave that awful example of, they want to be liberated, and now they have freedom to dance on the tables naked. So that's pretty unintelligent, the use of your woman's body. And that's not what devotee women do. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verse 34, opulence of the Absolute, Krishna says, among women I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, and patience. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the 7 opulences listed are considered feminine. If a person possesses all of them, they become glorious. All are fully manifested naturally in Krishna, all the opulences. But as his parts and parcels, we are in training to manifest these opulences in service to him. Let's have confidence. We read about that in Upadeshamrita, have confidence in Krishna, that the Lord will reciprocate our desires. So Prabhupada said a human being has the ability to be conscious of his consciousness. It's intelligent to reflect. It's intelligent to be able to submit your genuine desire in service at Krishna's feet. You can be ambitious to serve Krishna, but don't be ambitious to put yourself forward all the time. Be ambitious to serve other people and bring them forward. It's much more pleasing to Krishna and to your spiritual master, and you feel happier yourself actually when you do that. So it's up to us to be honest about our intention, whether we're trying to please Krishna or we're trying to carve out some reputation for ourselves. And Prabhupada was so humble. He never did that. He never put himself in the center. One time I was in Prabhupada's room during an evening darshan, and I asked him, can we pray to Gaunitai to help us to follow your instructions? And he didn't like it at all. He said, I am servant of Gaunitai. Don't ask Gaunitai how to please me. And, Prabhupada is very, very chaste in all senses. Very chaste. Chastity really means to be chaste to your spiritual master and the instructions of Krishna. So keep in touch with yourself and keep your service intention on track and discuss it. Discuss it with your friends. One thing I've really found very helpful and really ecstatic really is reading with other devotees, reading. We've been going to America a lot. I've got all my papers upside down, I don't know where I'm up to. But just give me a minute. Anyway, we read together, and we read Upadesham Rita first because it's such a wonderful book. And Prabhupada said it's very good to read many books, but it's even better to understand what you read and bring that into your everyday life. And that's what I had a reading group with some ladies that came here and quite a few different people. And what we found was the most important was coming together and being able to trust each other and say sometimes which things were difficult for us in our everyday life. And we have to support each other. It's not a race who gets there first. It's not attractive to, just try to put yourself in the center. Krishna's in the center, and we should be like the gopis around Krishna together, the ladies. So, we read Upadeshamrita, then we started reading other books. So some people didn't know. So in America, some people didn't have some of the books we had, and they hadn't read Sitala's book. Has anyone read Sitala's book? The Glories, Srila Narottam Das Thakur. That is a wonderful book. And at the end, so I actually did that book here with quite new devotees who didn't know very much at all. And they all fell in love with Narottam Das Thakur, and they're all crying at the end of the book. So to read together is wonderful. Does anyone have a reading group or belong to a reading group?
Youth has got one.
Pardon? You have one?
Youth of HKCCC has got one reading group on Thursday evenings.
Yeah. It's a really nice way of learning. And Prabhupada did like that, you could actually, don't just learn things so you can recite slokas and get a reputation or something. It's nice to learn slokas. But the important thing is that it's part of it, you bring it in your life. Because we all struggle with certain things. Okay, I'm just going to share a little thing that's my personal experience of the reciprocation. I always wanted to go in Prabhupada's room in Bombay. Giriraj Maharaj was very kind to me and trained me up in preaching and going out to meet people. And so I used to always go to Prabhupada's room when guests came. I really liked being there, but I was shy, of course, in front of Prabhupada. And I used to just stand there and hope he'd ask me to do something. And sometimes he'd say, give them prasad and shut the blinds. And I was praying that I could be Prabhupada's body servant in my next life. And I was watching the boys who were Prabhupada's servants, the men. We still call each other boys and girls. Anyway, and Prabhupada calls us boys and girls. So I used to watch Shruti Kirti and Upendra and any of the boys who were serving Prabhupada, Pujuna and Navyagendra sometimes. Anyway, I kind of knew what they did, and I watched them like a hawk. And then, because I thought I want to train up so I can be Prabhupada's servant in my next life. Anyway, one day, I used to sometimes, what I used to do is bring up anything I knew the cooks would need. Like if someone's cooking the Rajbhog, I'd bring up the vegetables, I'd bring up milk at night, and anything to get in Prabhupada's quarters. One time Prabhupada asked if I could cook lunch, but I wasn't good at chapatis or dal. So he said, don't do it if you're not expert. Then a few nights later, no one showed up. And Navyagendra was in the kitchen, madly trying to get something together for Prabhupada. And he told me to make a sabji, and I was so scared because Prabhupada had said, don't cook if you're not expert. So I made a sabji that one of my god sisters taught me, and she cooked for Prabhupada. So then Prabhupada had the meal, and then someone came out, the guy came out who was serving him, not the guy. It was, who was it? I can't remember. And he said, Prabhupada, what's your name? And I froze. I thought, oh no. Prabhupada wants to know who cooked this sabji. I thought it was going to be in big trouble. And he said he really liked the sabji. And the other experience was that Prabhupada, I used to I managed to get to do the fruit offering as well every day, so I could get in Prabhupada's room for a bit longer. And then sometimes Prabhupada liked peeling the fruit himself if it was, what's it called, the green fruit that's quite hard, like a pear. Huh? Guava, yeah. He liked peeling that himself. And but on that day I was peeling fruits for Prabhupada, and the servant hadn't come back yet. He'd gone to Villapala or somewhere to buy groceries, and he hadn't come back. And when Prabhupada woke up, he used to ring the bell, and I knew what they did, but Prabhupada rang the bell, so I ran next door to the sannyasi quarters, see if anyone was there. I was shouting, Prabhupada's awake, Prabhupada's ringing the bell, and no one there, so I went back. And I knew what they did, so I went in with a tray with a garland, and when in the heat they used to put sandalwood on Prabhupada's head. So I went in and I stood there at the back of the room because I didn't want to be, imposing or rude. And Prabhupada goes, like that with his head. So I went forward and I put the garland on. And I was so taken aback that Srila Prabhupada let me do that service before my next life. And then I had the sandalwood as well, but and Prabhupada again went like that, but I could do it. So then I went forward and I put it on Prabhupada's head. And I just thought, Prabhupada's so kind. He always reciprocates. And he does. If you haven't prayed to Prabhupada or asked him to give you some mercy and help, because he is the Siksha Guru for everybody. You have your Diksha Guru, but he's the founder of Charan. And we should all have, you do have a relationship with him, even if you're not conscious of it, because you're following him. You're Prabhupada's followers. That means you are connected with Srila Prabhupada. But it's nice to, sometimes you open Bhagavad Gita and you just get what you needed to hear, isn't it? That's how Krishna knows everything about you. But you'll also find that Srila Prabhupada can guide you. You can feel the mercy. I had a dream once, this is my last thing because it's getting late. I had a dream once, we were asked to manage a restaurant in Nottingham in England, which is the highest unemployment rate in the country. And it was disastrous, you know. It was such hard work, and then the cook fell ill, and another cook went away. I was in my 60s, and I had to cook the buffet, and I was so tired, and I didn't get to start my rounds till 4 in the afternoon. And one day I got up early, I had to wash the tea towels, and all those things. And I had a dream. I fell back asleep, and I had a dream. In the dream, Prabhupada was sitting just in front of me, and I was sitting behind him, and I had my bead bag. And Prabhupada stood up with his bead bag, and I took hold of my bead bag like, it's late, and I'm done my rounds in the dream. And then in the dream, Prabhupada turned around and he said, "Thank you for trying." So I think if you take shelter like that with Prabhupada, when you have a difficult time or you're a little overburdened, you'll feel his reciprocation. Otherwise, talk to God's sisters or the GP that take shelter, huh? And I think that's it. But I just wanted to say one more thing. Can you wait a minute?